Hello everybody, and welcome. Today's video is going to be about a lot of the nations that are going to be being affected and changed by the Graveyard of Empires DLC, but not necessarily like the nations that are getting a rework. So the four that are getting a focus tree or a rework in the British Raj's case, I'm not going to be talking about them. I'm going to be talking about nations that will be affected based off of the information that we have at the moment. So at the moment of recording, this is after the first developer diary on the historical British Raj rework is out, as well as some few images, but not any alt history trees or any of the new focus trees. So really the reason I'm making this is because we got a few things that happened, and it made me interested in seeing how the nations will be affected. So before we get into the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I love the feedback I've been getting on these videos, so I'll keep trying to make some good content for you guys. Alright, to start out with, I'd like to go over a couple honorable mentions. These aren't really nations that are being really affected directly, but I thought it was enough to bring up as an honorable mention. So the three are Kurdistan, which would be Kurdistan because now, with the changes on the map, it's pretty much confirmed is going to be in some kind of influence with the British Empire, so it will not just be an independent country. Now, we're not sure what kind of puppet it'll be, if it's going to be on the regular puppets or if it's going to be a new kind of puppet or whatever, but it will be. And we also know for a fact that Syria is now going to be a starting puppet of France, and one of the Kurdish states is in Syria. Now, the reason I brought this up is because of the achievement, the Kurdistan achievement, where you have to have all of Kurdistan states as Kurdistan. So it will be affected just because now there will be a puppet that potentially, like, if it could potentially go free or not. And now with Iraq being in a different situation than it was, it's going to be slightly different than it used to be. Now, it probably won't be any harder, but I thought I'd bring it up just for that fact. Now, the other two honorable mentions are Poland up here and South Africa down here. Now, the reason these two are honorable mentions on this list is because of the achievements, the Crusader Kings achievements, where you have to take Palestine and which now will be its own kind of puppet of the United Kingdom, which, while that won't make much of a difference, it is slightly different because now they can do a base focus tree. Who knows if they're going to give them any kind of decisions or anything like that, or they could give them a leader that has surrender limit changes. There's a multitude of things that can happen just by the fact that it's a puppet now instead of just being a state owned by another country. It's probably, again, not going to be that big of a difference. That's why it's an honorable mention. But I thought I'd mention it just because it will be slightly different. Alright, now moving on to the actual list. I have this ordered in what I think is kind of least impactful to most impactful by the changes. So the one I wanted to start out with is the Soviet Union. Now, the reason I really brought up the Soviet Union is because it has this Middle Eastern diplomacy little section, which, well, I don't want to count every little thing that can affect the Middle East, because there's plenty of things that can give them ideology and stuff without really that big of a deal. I thought this one was important just because it is technically part of the historical branch, where the invasion of Iran, that is something that actually is World War II historical. So I feel this is fair enough to bring up. Plus, you can just get straight war goals. I think it's big enough to be affected with how Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq are being changed, and you can get a war goal on them or boost their ideology. So I thought it was enough to bring up. It's not really an honorable mention because, again, it is something historical Soviet Union will do, so they will meddle in this region, which will be different than it used to be. But it's not much to it. Moving next will be over to Japan. Now, Japan will be slightly affected just because of the fact that they've changed how Siam's AI will work so that it'll actually join the war. Not to mention now Burma will be its own colony, which then with the Raj rework, Japan does invade, this is going to be a major front. So I thought, yeah, we'll throw it in because it will be affected. This will change how things go in this region. Just even ignoring the fact that the Raj has its own reworked focus tree. Just the fact that Burma is going to be a release nation means it will have the base focus tree. So it'll be able to get all these factories and all the dockyards and stuff and create its own units. So but also it might be affected because who knows how the AI works, because they've had issues where if the AI doesn't directly control the territory, it's weird about putting units there. So India might not put as many units. We'll have to see how that all works out, but I thought it was worth mentioning that it will affect Japan in some way. Now moving over, we have 3 nations that I kind of lumped into one because it's pretty much the same reason for all 3 that I put them on the list, and that is Ethiopia, Greece, and Italy. Now the reason these 3 are on the list is because, for one, Ethiopia has an achievement, another Crusader Kings achievement, but also if you do one, I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of these. Yes, it's the One True Heir of Solomon gives you a core on Palestine, and it's also an achievement. So the fact that now it's an independent country, and then you're also going to have Jordan's its own, not independent, but its own starting nation colony. It's going to affect it slightly just as a result of it being that way, and then and how the game interacts with that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd bring it up because it's a core. Same reason with Greece and Italy. Now Greece with its Byzantine path, because you can core the Middle East, as well as the Macedonian Empire, which you can get by doing Protectors of the Mediterranean or Molding the New World Order. I mean, it's a hidden formula, but it affects this region, so the changes in this region will affect it. Now, how much? It'll be more affected by the focus trees and what they do with these 3. But, you need Syria, you need these regions for, Byzantium. So I thought I'd bring it up just because, it's territory you will core, so it is going to be directly affected by that, because for however, what troops or how many factories in the region, it is affected. Same with Italy and its Rome path. I believe also, you can also liberate the colonies as the communist path. I've not really tried that one as hard as I probably should, with how it works, but with how you can get territory and stuff with that. But I know I've done the Roman path enough times that you core this region, so it will be affected just because this is cores and it's going to be different than how it used to be. The next set of nations I want to talk about are the 2 of the colonial powers, the United Kingdom and France. Now these are both going to be affected. France to a lesser extent than the UK, but both will be affected because now France will have a starting puppet in Syria. Now I'm not sure at the moment if Lebanon's also going to be a puppet or if it's going to be a part of Syria and just be occupied state or a core. We're not sure how that is because we only got to see half of Syria as a puppet, but it's something that will be on the map as a puppet, so it will be slightly different. Now France has puppet nations, and they'll be going down a focus tree, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to Syria when France capitulates, because usually the territory would flip to Vichy France, and then the Free French tree can flip it over. So it's going to be affected by what happens with the French puppet nation. So we'll have to see what that does. Continuing on with the British, with the United Kingdom, the British, they will have 2 new puppets for sure, one in Transjordan and one in Palestine, the Transjordan Kingdom, whatever they want to call it, and then the Mandate of Palestine. So they'll have 2 new puppets in this region, and then Iraq will be some part of the British Empire. Again, we don't know if it's going to be its own puppet type or if it's just going to be a part of the regular puppet system, but it'll be in there now. So, not to mention the British Raj is getting an overhaul. So how the British tree interacts with that, they've already mentioned a couple times that some of the focus is interacting weird. So they've probably made changes to how some of that works. If not, they will have to do it in some bug fix patches. So the United Kingdom will be definitely affected just by fact of the new puppets, let alone the rework to one of their already existing puppets. And they're also getting another puppet with Burma. So they're getting a decent change in this region. So I thought it was good reason to point them out. And the final nation on this list is Turkey. Now Turkey is going to be affected pretty decently, to be honest, because the Sadabad Pact and making them puppets and all that will be affected just by the fact of all these having focus trees and how that'll interact. Not to mention the Damascus Diktat will be different because now it sends it to France right now, but it's going to be Syria is going to be its own thing. So how's that going to work out? Is it still going to send it to France and then you can annex Syria? Is it going to affect? Are you going to still be able to get Lebanon? It's going to be a whole thing. We're going to have to see how that affects that, and then not to mention you core the whole region with the Ottoman Empire. So it will be quite a bit different. We'll have to see how much of a change it is, but it is something. Then we also have in the Tehran path multiple changes that will probably affect. So if you go with like the Allies path, which I believe is historical, that it does join the Allies, where so you'll have taking over the defense of the Gulf, which gets you like territory here, which 2 of these are puppets. So now is it just going to annex puppets, or is it not going to affect that? Or are you only going to get the Sinai, like, or are you going to get it all? And if you get it all, these are going to have a lot more building slots because they're independent. Not I always say independent, but they're going to be colonies instead of controlled states. So that's going to be slightly different. They also have, I believe you get control of Aden this way too, and Aden is for sure is being split into 2 states, so you'll get an extra state that way. So like, there's going to be decent changes with that. Not to mention, oh, that's not the focus tree we want. We want Turkey. With Turkey, there besides just that, you also have like the dealing with Iraq with the Axis tree, and then no matter what of these trees you go down. Like you also have like Kurdistan that gets you claims and wars in this region. You also have all this that deals with that, so like the Tehran tree. So because Turkey is very tied in with this region with its focus tree, almost with any path you do. The only path realistically you can do that doesn't really get affected by this is the Balkan integrity, which I don't know if anyone has ever done Balkan integrity. So Turkey's going to be probably one of the nations most affected by the change in this region, and probably will need quite a patch or 2 to fix, just because it's going to have bad interactions. And we've seen with Paradox that they don't necessarily playtest every nation. They don't even play. Sometimes they don't even really playtest the nations they're adding, let alone nations that will be affected by the new stuff. So we'll have to see how much this is affected, but this was just a short little video I wanted to throw together before we know anything about the old history and the things that the new DLC nations will be doing. And just my thoughts on what's going to be slightly affected and how much of playthroughs are going to be changed based on this region just getting a change at all. So I thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.